Hello Planeswalkers, welcome to Scavenge the Pages, a show about MTG stories. I'm your host, Tasigur, aka the Golden Fang, aka the Opulent One, aka the Dragon's Necklace, aka Delve Daddy. In this episode, I'll scavenge through the pages of Magic lore to learn all I can about why Chandra, Nissa, and Ajani need release. Then I'll present more evidence for my predictions when it comes to the future of Amonkhet. Let's get started. Turn the page, zombie. Our story began with Ajani hopping from rooftop to rooftop on Kaladesh. He used a pair of mechanical brass gauntlets to augment his climbing strength and grip. Grandma had made the hands for him. Ajani arrived at Grandma's house, but the home was surrounded by consulate forces. Ajani ascended to the rooftops once more and entered the apartment from the top floor. Inside the apartment, Ajani found a few consulate investigators rummaging through Grandma's stuff. Ajani knocked two of the investigators unconscious and held the other one by the throat for answers. Where is Grandma Pashiri? The consulate soldier told Ajani about the trap that was set for her, but the soldier did not know where. Ajani left the 300 guards and followed Pashiri's scent. He was a tracker after all. Cut to 6 months in the past, on Kamigawa. A little ratfolk child named Nashi was playing hide-and-go-seek with his moonfolk brothers and sisters when there was a knock on the door. Nashi opened the door to reveal a giant cat. Tamio came to the door to greet Ajani, and soon Ajani was surrounded by moonfolk children eager to hear stories of Ajani's adventures. Tamio explained to Nashi that Ajani could walk behind the air, which means planeswalk, like herself and Narset. Nashi reflected for a moment on the stories Narset would tell of dragons. When Tamio asked Ajani about Elspeth, Ajani told her she isn't coming. So Tamio, Ajani, Elspeth, and Narset are all friends who have met and chilled over stories. Got it? Good. Back to the present on Kaladesh. Ajani continued to track Pashiri's scent until an elf artificer named Shadowblade, with a Y, was able to get the drop on him. A quick repeat of code words and the two realized they were on the same side. Shadowblade led Ajani across more rooftops to a close-by renegade hangout where the pair discovered that Mrs. Pashiri and two others were headed for Kujar, a province of Kaladesh dominated by the consulate. If Ajani and Shadowblade were going after Mrs. Pashiri, they would need help. So Shadowblade began rounding up her Lifecrafter friends. Cut back to 6 months ago, Kamigawa. Nashi, Tamio's adopted ratfolk son, used his small size to wiggle between floorboards and spy on Ajani and Tamio's conversation. Ajani noticed that Tamio was packed for a trip and he wondered if he came at a bad time. Tamio told Ajani she was preparing for a research planeswalk to Innistrad to study a moon with fascinating properties, but she always had time for Ajani. Ajani explained that he had gone to Theros and found Elspeth, but he was reluctant to talk. While Nashi listened, Ajani asked Tamio about him. Tamio explained that Nashi was an Izumi, a ratfolk from a village that was burned to the ground by an evil planeswalker named Tezzeret. Nashi began reliving the day his village was burned, while Tamio told Ajani that Tezzeret's corpse had been sold to a dragon. Unable to remain quiet, Nashi was discovered by Tamio and she held him while he cried it out. Back to present-day Kaladesh. Ajani, Shadowblade, and several of her Lifecrafter renegade friends had begun searching Kujar, and it didn't take long to discover that Mrs. Pashiri had entered the Dund under Gonti's market, not more than 20 minutes previous. Ajani's plan was to go in alone, while Shadowblade and the Lifecrafters planned his escape. In a moment of mutual respect, Ajani pulled off his hood so Shadowblade could see the real him, and Shadowblade admitted her real name was Vati. With the help of some clever tiny thopters and his nose, Ajani found an entrance to the tunnels and tracked Mrs. Pashiri all the way to a room with a box in its center. Ajani saw a hand slide past the only window on the box. Cut back to the past, now 5 months ago on Kamigawa. Ajani was preparing to leave when Nashi walked in on him packing. Nashi asked Ajani where he was going, and Ajani answered him honestly. He was going to Kaladesh to track down Tezzeret, the man who killed Nashi's family. Nashi asked if Ajani was going to kill Tezzeret, but Ajani did not know. The question made Ajani hold Elspeth's cloak and think of her. Ajani finally said it out loud. Elspeth was dead. Nashi asked to sit with Ajani because Tamio would sit with Nashi when he was sad. Nashi asked Ajani if he wanted to talk about Elspeth. The story Ajani told was fantastic. Elspeth was born in an evil land that was dominated by monsters that don't kill. Instead, the monsters would make you part of themselves and use you to do their evil bidding. Elspeth survived and planeswalked, or walked behind the air, to a place of sun, warmth, and acceptance. There, Elspeth trained to protect herself and fight for others. Then she saved Ajani's life as the plane was changing around them. As that land faded to gray, Ajani and others told Elspeth that the monsters of her childhood had left their old plane and had already begun tormenting another plane. Elspeth left for the other plane to fight the monsters, but the monsters won, and Elspeth returned to Ajani. The other Moonfolk children began to crowd around Ajani as he continued his story. Ajani and Elspeth fought a monster for the masters of the plane where Elspeth had been raised, and for her efforts, Elspeth was betrayed and killed by one of the masters. Ajani felt as though he had failed her, that it should have been him. Ajani's tears fell with the rain. The kids all cuddled up to Ajani while he cried it out. Back to the present on Kaladesh, where a fist pound on the glass of the trap. Ajani attacked the guards, cracked breastplates, and did not kill a single one of them. Ajani used his great axe to open the prison door, and Chandra, Nisa, and Mrs. Pashiri were freed. Nisa seemed to be unaffected by the poison, but Chandra and Mrs. Pashiri were healed by Ajani's magic. When Mrs. Pashiri awoke, she was glad to see Ajani, although she thought he looked a little thin. A thopter broke through the window above them, and a rope soon followed. The group had their way out. As one of the guards came to, he asked Ajani if he was going to kill him. Ajani doesn't kill anymore. And the chapter ends right there. What next? How are our heroes going to rendezvous with Jace, Liliana, and Gideon? What does it mean that Narset, Tamio, Elspeth, and Ajani had their own book club? Stay tuned. Put your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start speculating. Turn the page, zombie. Before I start spewing crazy speculation, spoiler alert. If you are the type that likes to learn things as they happen, I won't be mad if you click away. The problem with speculation, as always, if I'm right, it becomes prophecy. So watch at your own risk. Here I go. Alright, I admit it, I was wrong about Mrs. Pashiri. She survived thanks to our friend Ajani's healing magic. She would have died if it were not for him. I'm guessing that either she was too new a character or too important to the story's future for her to die by smoke in the box. Now on to that story Ajani told about Elspeth. Did you pick out all the nuggets? Here is what I think they mean. The evil plane, ruled by monsters that torment Elspeth in her youth, is Amonkhet. Amonkhet is Elspeth's home plane. Elspeth planeswalked to Theros when her spark ignited. There she was taught everything she knows about fighting, and there she met Ajani. In his story, Ajani said that Elspeth left to go fight the monsters of her youth because they were attempting to corrupt another plane. She lost and the monsters won. Elspeth went to Mirrodin to help fight the Phyrexians and lost. That means the Phyrexians are gods, or at least perceived as such, on Amonkhet. If we are going to get a hefty dose of Phyrexians in Amonkhet block, I think that makes my case for a return to Alara next fall all the more realistic, and a return to New Phyrexia a little less so. So what other juicy nuggets of information did I miss in Ajani's story? How will Amonkhet being Elspeth's home plane tie into everything? Stay tuned, put your thoughts and predictions in the comments below. Page zombie. Thanks, peoples. That concludes this episode of Scavenge the Pages. Delve into more fun with me next episode as I continue my search for lore to make a bunch of ludicrous predictions. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share. If you did not enjoy this episode, please dislike and share. Please feel obligated to comment below. Subscribe to stay up to date on the latest from TasigurTV, and I will see you next adventure. Love always, Tasigur.